Greetings to my fellow Americans. And for the record, I'm not saying that as whether you were born here, whether you're a naturalized American citizen. I'm referring more to a national concept of where our country is supposed to be based upon our founders' ideals. And when I say that, I'm talking about the pre-existence of corruption in our government, the warping of the ideals and the foundation our country was founded upon, and the people out here right now who actually genuinely care about reforming our country, the people who want to return it to it as it should be, not as to how it presently is. Those are the people I'm addressing. Those are the people I'm assuming are watching this video, and those are the ones I'm calling Americans, because your heart and soul, you are an American who cares about America, and you care about the Constitution and the foundation for which we all are supposed to be living under. As an example of that today, I'm dealing with the subject of pretrial detention. Now, pretrial detention is basically saying that you've been accused of a crime, you're put in jail, and you're held there until you have a trial. Now, this seems like a pretty simple, straightforward process. After all, we have an Eighth Amendment that says excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment imposed. Very straightforward, right? Well, it should be. Unfortunately, that's not how it's practiced. Even our Flathead County jail website actually has the language, the majority of persons held in this facility are pre-trial, meaning they have been accused but not convicted of a criminal offense. And if that was for a temporary, like they're there for a week until they see trial, or they're there for a couple of weeks until they see trial, okay, there are people in that jail who have been there since July 11th of 2020, and this is presently August of 2021 that I'm recording this. You can look it up right now if you are looking at this in a current context. His name is Dre Whiting, Wieting. He's been in there since July 11th, 2020, and as yet, it looks like he's not been convicted. Which means he's been in there over a year without any conviction. He's being punished without being convicted of what he's in there for. Now, some of the things he has, his misdemeanors, it looks like he has been convicted of, and he could be serving misdemeanor time. I'm not sure, but for the very least, there's charges in there he is pending that have not yet been resolved, and he's been in there over a year. Myself, I was in the county jail for over 16 months before I saw my trial. And that, again, no prior history, no prior criminal anything. Just thrown in there under an excessive bail, $50,000, which I was unable to meet, and consequently I stayed in there for 16 months while I waited for a trial. It is the way it exists. Presently in our current jail in Flathead County, Montana, we have a 63-bed capacity, which means we're not supposed to have more than 63 people in there. Presently, the count in the jail is 100, an even number today. I've seen it go as high as 130 and even higher than that. When they have more than the beds of it allow, they simply throw a plastic container on the floor, throw a thin mattress on it, and call it good. And we're talking concrete floors here. We're not talking carpeted or in any manner, shape, or form. These are concrete floors, cold, just absolutely miserable. And then when you have to get down onto a very thin plastic material and very thin mattress with no pillow, by the way. You're not allowed to have a pillow in the Flathead County Detention Center. But you lay here on this cot, and that's what you go for. Anyone above the 63-bed capacity is laying on the floor. And you have to literally walk around them in these narrow walkways and try not to step on them. Talk about inhumane. Remember, no cruel and unusual punishment. And this is pre-trial. Most of these people in here are on pre-trial detention. They've not been convicted of the crimes they're in there for. They're being put on the floors. They're being denied excessive bail. When they do get convicted, they get excessive fines that are just across the board all over the place. You have, right now, of those people in the jail, 68 of them are in there over $1,000 bond. So they have to come with $1,000 or more to get out. 29 of them are over $10,000. And then there's at least 2 in there I know of that are $500,000 bonds. One of those people has been there since, I can't speak for the second, but the first one, and I've been asked not to speak names right now because, I'm trying to get permissions and releases, and I don't want to upset the apple cart in any of their defenses, so I'm trying to be vague in some of it just to protect them. But one of those people I know for a fact has been there since December 24th this last year. Again, this is August, so he's been there 8 months. He has a long-standing community service history. He works in a field of community service. He works all across the country in public service. He has a stellar reputation in the community. He's a leader in his industry. And trying again not to be very specific here, but he has absolutely no. He doesn't even have, a jaywalking ticket on his record. He has no criminal history, none, zero, nada. But he's been there for 8 months. Meanwhile, he has no income. He doesn't have his job. He can't go out and work, obviously. He's losing his savings. His fiance is on the outside right now trying to cover everything. She had to take off her work because she works in the same industry he does and can't travel because she has to be here to take care of him and his property, which is, of course, is being subjected to vandalism, threats, intimidations from members in the community, which they receive no protection from the Flathead County Sheriff's Office whatsoever. They have the longest person we have in here right now in the jail, as I mentioned, has been there since July 11th of 2020. And it's just an insane prospect that people can be held in jail before they're even convicted of a crime. They're being punished, literally, for, in Dre's case, for over a year. In other people's cases, for, months at a time. They lose their jobs. They oftentimes lose their homes. They lose their support in the community. The prejudice exists that if they're in jail, they must be there for a reason, otherwise they will let them out. People look at bail bonds and they say, oh, the bail bond is out there, and if you give property and 10%, you can get out. How do you have enough property to cover a $500,000 bond? How do you have most people who work 9 to 5, who work, and let's face it, most of the people who are in the jail are people who can't afford their bail because they aren't wealthy enough to afford the bail, which means they're in there unable to raise the $1,000 bond. They're unable to raise a $400 bond or a $10,000 bond, or as in my case, a $50,000 bond. I was actually in the jail with somebody who had a $50,000 bond. He raised it. The court turned around and raised the $75,000. They didn't turn around, he raised that. They raised it to $100,000. All because they didn't want him out. His attorney at that point said, we just keep raising the bail, but they're going to just keep raising it to an amount you can't afford. And it's true, because they don't want you out. They won't let you out. They put you under an excessive bond for a reason. That is to keep you there, to keep you locked up, to keep you shut off, to make you lose your resources, to make you lose your income, to make you lose any way you have, any means you might have to fight against the very authorities who are not locked up, who are not deprived, who are not in any way cut off from resources or assets to continue their prosecution against you. And they have absolute power to do this. Nobody tells them they can't. Nobody will come in and say, you can't put this person in here under a $50,000 bond. They don't have any criminal history. They don't have a flight risk. They have property here. They have family here. They have everything else. This person is losing their children, their home, their family, their job, everything, because you don't want them out. Because you want a prosecution. They don't care if it's real. I read somewhere a few years ago that roughly 40% of all prosecutions brought annually fail, which means that 60% of the time the prosecutors are right and 40% of the time they're wrong. Except in Montana. In Kalispell, everyone gets prosecuted. You go to jail, you get prosecuted. And you go to jail, and you likely will get convicted. I can't find an example of too many people who walk out of jail after they've been in there. Innocent or guilty. Either you break down emotionally and you just can't take being shut in a cement block room for 24 hours a day, sleeping on a cold mattress with one thin blanket, with no heat, really. The heat level is so low even in the wintertime, you have to wear a sweatshirt and you have to have a blanket, and even then you're cold. You don't have any kind of comfort. You're sharing a room with however many other people you're sharing it with, anywhere between 4 in some pods all the way up to 20 in other pods. You can have all these people surrounding you. You have one television, no newspapers. You have a book cart that comes around, and you can read that. I guess they've now started allowing people to send magazines and stuff into people in the jail, which they didn't do when I was there. But there's some limited forms of entertainment. But you have a phone that you have to pay for. You have to, if you have a collect call to somebody, forget it. It's going to cost you $30 or more for a 10-minute phone call to somebody. If you have the money on your books or on your account to put towards phone cards. You can have a phone card. You can actually have someone on the outside put a deposit of $50 on your account, to see if you can make phone calls. That's the maximum, by the way. They cap it at $50. Cost you $6.15 for a 15-minute phone call. Any deposits into their machines that you put money on the accounts, they charge $4 just to put the deposit on. To put money on through the website, and I'm actually looking at a chart here. There's up through $19.99, they charge you $4.95. Up to $99.99, they charge you $7.95. Up to $199.99, they charge you $9.95. Up to $300, they charge you $11.95. Now, keep in mind, this money is going to pay for the inflated phone cards they're already selling, the inflated commissary they're already selling. This money is already going back into them. It's already being paid into them. This is not money that's going to anywhere else. So they're charging a service fee for the privilege of overcharging you and overbilling you. They're not charging you normal telephone rates. And in our day and age, quite frankly, there's absolutely no reason to charge phone calls. We have cell phones that you pay a monthly fee and you have unlimited phone calls. And yet, here we are paying up to $12 for putting money on people's books so they can make phone calls to you. Then they want to charge you those phone calls up to $6.15 for a 15-minute phone call, $30 if it's a collect call. They want to charge you for anything in there. They charge you money for the calls, for the commissary. They charge you your medical costs. My brother, who's currently in the jail right now, again on a charge that he didn't do, and they know he didn't do it, but they don't care. They just want to have an excuse to prosecute him, and quite frankly, he's an easy mark. He had to get taken to the hospital the first night he was there, and they're charging him for the ambulance bill. Now, keep in mind, he has Medicare. He has medical insurance because of his disability, and he has Medicare. They could have billed Medicare. Instead, they're requiring him to pay and reimburse them for the ambulance trip. There are people who pay for their own medicines in there. And then this is assuming that you even get medical care at all. There are people with syphilis in our jail right now. There's a mass outbreak of COVID because they're not properly separating people, and they're certainly not sanitizing anything in there. And these people are left pretty much on their own. I had a guy I was in jail with who I flew they're called kites, which are basically memos to the supervisors and jail staff. But I was flying kites for 3 months before I turned around and got him medical treatment for an abscessed tooth. His entire side of his jaw was swollen and inflamed, and they were ignoring it. 3 months it took me to get him medical care. 3 months flying messages to the staff in this jail to get medical care for an abscessed tooth. And it wasn't something that, he's just making it up. His entire side of his face was swollen. It was so obvious. They ignored it. So this is what these people go through on the inside. They go through all of this. They're denied everything, every aspect of humanity and dignity. And once again, and I keep reiterating this point, they've not been convicted of anything. These are not people who've actually been convicted of a crime and are serving their time. These are people who are in there before being convicted. But the process is so isolating, it cuts you off from income, it cuts you off from resources, it cuts you off from the ability to certainly defend yourself in any way. You're relied completely upon a public defender most of the time, and that public defender works for the prosecutor's office and the court, not for you. They will not challenge the wrongdoing of the departments. They will not challenge the wrongdoing of the courts. They will not challenge the wrongdoing of anybody. They barely work for you. In law, we're supposed to have what's called an adversarial relationship between the prosecutors and the defense. It does not exist in Flathead County. I can't speak for other counties, but it does not exist in Flathead County. And I imagine it doesn't exist anywhere in Montana because of the way it works. But you sit here and you have all of this stuff and all these penalties and all these consequences. And once again, by the time you get to a trial, you are so depleted of your resources. You are so depleted of your ability to defend yourself. You're so depleted, any witnesses, any evidence, anything else, anyone you could have brought forward to prove your own innocence, you've lost all contact with. most people just simply don't want to be involved in this kind of situation. And as I said before, once you're inside, the presumption is, well, you must have done something, otherwise you wouldn't still be there. This presumption of guilt is just an insane mindset that has been indoctrinated into people who live in this country. And once again, I refer back to the beginning of the video where I referred to Americans. A genuine American, somebody who actually cares about the Constitution, cares about our country and the ideals it represents, could not see this as any kind of justifiable aspect. This isn't punishment for people who've committed crimes. This is punishment for people who the prosecutor wants to convict of crimes and uses this process to wear them down to take plea deals. It's a sad state of existence when people actually will choose to go to prison because they have more freedom and liberty in prison than they have in a jail cell. They sit inside a concrete bunker for months and months and months and months with very little. Their idea of, by the way, of fresh air is they go into another concrete walled area where 20 feet above you have a grate that opens to the outside. So you don't get to see trees, you don't get to see wildlife, you don't get to see people, you don't get to see anything. You get to see the sky. And if it's not a cloudy day, you might see the sun. Might, depending upon where you are. You certainly can't get any kind of realistic health benefit from walking around a concrete walled enclosure that's open to the sky 20 feet above you. There's no way that'd be considered healthy. And that's 15, 20 minute, maybe 30 minutes a day. You aren't out there all day. You don't get to go to, quote unquote, the yard. You don't get to work on, running around a track or lifting weights or anything else you see on TV. You don't get any of that. Not in Flathead County. It's very primitive. It's barely humane. Barely humane. The food they send you is nutritionally deprived. I mean, it's just, you have to have the commissary just to get any kind of nutrition to supplement what they give you. It's bare minimum. Bare minimum. It's just, I can't say enough bad about how bad the system is. And you wonder why the conviction rate is so high here. It's not because they're right all the time. It's because they wear these people down. They want out. They entrap them. They make them feel hopeless and helpless and isolate them from any resource or any kind of humanity or dignity. And they keep them there for months or times until they can break. An average person thinks they can go, oh, I can survive that. Try it. Live it. I have. And I'm telling you, it's not that easy to survive. You're not by yourself. You're surrounded by people who are just as annoyed, just as frustrated, just as aggravated, and tempers fly. People get abusive. There are actual criminals in there you're with. Especially if you're innocent and you have no prospect and you're surrounded by all these people whose immediate inclination is towards violence. If you're just a normal, everyday, average person, you don't think, I'm going to go ahead and take you up in my cell and beat your butt. And that's my solution to the problem. But that's how many of these people are. They're indoctrinated into thinking this lifestyle. They are criminals. Not everybody in there's a criminal, but a lot of people are. And even if they do have a criminal mentality, it doesn't necessarily mean they're in there for the crime they've committed. They may have done any number of crimes, but if you're not in there for a crime you committed, if you're accused of something you didn't do, maybe you cheated on your taxes, maybe you hacked a website, maybe you downloaded a music song you weren't supposed to. Congratulations, you're a criminal, you've committed a crime. Did you get caught for those? No. But if you're accused of, I don't know, let's say, aiming a gun at somebody across the street while you're driving by and you never had a gun and you never aimed it at anybody, but someone just said that and got you arrested for it, you don't belong in jail. They have to be able to prove that what you're in there for, you're accused of. And they just wear you down to the point that, hey, you've been in there for 6 months, a year, however long we're going to keep you in here, until you have a trial, and you're just tired of being in there, and you just want to move on. You've already lost your home, you've lost your job, you've lost your income. Even if you got out the door, where would you go? You'd be on the streets. You have no home anymore. Your rent, you didn't pay it. Your job, you didn't show up for work. Your family, well, if you had children, they're in the care of the state now, and you have no steady home or steady income, so you can't get them back. And the longer they're in the state's custody, the harder it is to get them back. So it's like you get there, Even if you survive it and you get out and you're proven innocent through some miracle, you have nothing to return to. Everything you've had is gone. You've now become part of the homeless community in town. They obliterate your life on an accusation. There is no concept of innocent until proven guilty in Flathead County, Montana. There's an old expression that says, come on vacation, leave on probation. And I was talking to someone the other day, and I think it's probably more accurate to say, come on vacation, stay for probation. Because once you're on probation, they don't let you go. They just don't. They keep you here. But anyway, I've been rambling on and on for quite a while, and I think I've gotten my point across, I hope. If you have any questions, by all means, my contact information and my associate's contact information are in the details of this video. If you are watching this video on some other source besides Podbean, where its original broadcast is, please go there and subscribe. That way you can be kept up to date with all the current podcasts that I'm bringing out. I'm planning to be bringing them out on Tuesdays and Saturdays for the foreseeable future. And I'm always going to have topics. I have so much to talk about, and I'm just hopeful that my voice gets out there before someone decides that, we need to get him quiet again. So we'll see. Thank you for listening, and you have a wonderful day. And please, in this day of COVID and everything else, keep yourselves safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.